Hey guys, it's ENOS-GAMING. Today we're going to be doing another Spider-Man fan story that I came up with that I would like to see in a movie. So this movie would actually be, in my opinion, probably one of the best Spider-Man movies we could probably ever see. It would start off with Peter and Mary Jane getting ready to move in together. They are now both in college, both adults. They're moving into the same apartment. Now the story would start off with Harry Osborn showing up to Aunt May's house to help Peter move all his stuff out and into the new apartment with him and Mary Jane. So once they get everything moved in, Peter, Mary Jane, and Harry will all sit down and start talking about life, about college, and about everything just going on, really. Harry will then get a phone call from his father, Norman, asking him to come home. So Harry would get up and leave. Peter and MJ would have a little boyfriend and girlfriend moment. You know, they would hang out, they would kiss, they would talk. Peter's spider sense will then go off, and he will turn around and see a small little black ball crash through the window. He'll think it's just a bunch of little kids trying to be funny by throwing stuff through windows. So he'll get up, look out the window, but not see anything. Mary Jane will then walk over to the ball and pick it up. Peter's spider sense will start going crazy, and then he would realize that ball is not what it seems. He'll then turn around and scream at Mary Jane to put the ball down, but then the ball will shoot out a little bit of gas that will knock out both Peter and MJ. Peter will then wake up in a field, look around, and he'll see MJ laying on the floor next to him. He'll then realize we are no longer in New York, we're not even in the US. He'll then wake up Mary Jane, she'll wake up, look around all scared and ask where they are, and he'll turn around and say, I'm not 100% sure, but I think we are in Africa. A lion will then show up and attack Mary Jane. Peter will then grab the lion and throw it. The lion will then turn around and try to attack Peter, but because of Peter's spider's abilities, he will be able to dodge the lion without getting hurt. A spear will then come out of nowhere, hitting the lion, killing it instantly. Peter will then turn around and see one of his greatest enemies, Kraven the Hunter. Kraven will then jump down right in front of Peter and say, "Welcome, Spider-Man. Welcome to Africa. Welcome to the jungle." Peter will then stare at him and look at MJ, look back at him and say, "Why are we here, Kraven?" Kraven will laugh and say, "I want to show you where I've made my home. I want to show you the thrill of the hunt. I want to show you how I hunt, and then I will hunt you, Spider-Man." Peter will then turn around to MJ and say, "But why is she involved?" Turn around and Kraven will then be gone. Peter will look around for Kraven but not find him. Then he'll hear a voice that will say, "The hunt begins." Peter will then run over to MJ and kneel down to her, and he'll pull out a small little needle and he'll say, "MJ, I don't know if this will work or not, but this is something that we've been working on at Warren Labs. Yes, this story will take place in the same universe as my other Spider-Man fan movie idea I came up with." What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, he'll then pull out a small needle and eject it into her arm, and then it will heal her, like her scars, her cuts, everything from the lion will then go away. And the whole point of that is just to show that Peter's really smart, that he was able to create a serum like this. Now, it's not really an origin story for MJ. It's not really gonna give her any powers or anything. It's just there to heal her. Anyway, and then they'll both get up and start walking around trying to figure out how they're gonna get back home. Well, then Peter's spider sense will go off. He'll then turn around and a bunch of spears will come flying at him. He'll then push Mary Jane out of the way and start dodging all the spears. He'll then turn around and see a jungle area. He'll grab Mary Jane. They'll run into the jungle area because of the trees. He's hoping that it will be harder for Kraven to see them. They'll then sit down by a tree. Peter will lean his head back and he'll say, "I don't know how to get home. This is his territory, not mine. He knows this area a lot better than I do." Mary Jane will then look up and tap Peter on the shoulder and say, "I hope you brought your suit." They'll then look up and see a group of hunters who are working with Kraven. They are Kraven's followers. Peter will then look up at the tree, shoot a web out, grab Mary Jane, and swing up to the top of the tree. He'll then set her down, change into his Spider-Man suit, and he'll jump down and fight the Kraven's followers. And then all of a sudden, Peter's spider sense, after beating all the hunters, his spider sense will then go off. Peter will then turn around and see Craven running at him. He'll jump over Craven, shoot a web out, pulling Craven in, punching him in the face. Craven will then pull out a small little knife that he carries around and start swinging at Peter. Peter will then, beat Craven, and then Craven will just disappear. His spider sense will keep going off, so he keeps looking around him. Craven will keep appearing, punching him in the face, kind of like you see in, not horror movies, but movies where you see the person kind of looking around, where is the person? They turn around, the person's behind them, then they punch him. They'll fall to the floor, get back up, look around, where'd they go? And then the person is still sitting there, punching them, kind of like that. And it'll get to the point where he'll then grab Peter by the neck and start threatening him to kill not just him, but Mary Jane. And it'll then trigger Peter's anger to where he beats the crap out of Craven. And then Craven will then pull something out, throw it on the ground, and it'll explode. Peter will cover his face to protect it, look around, and then you'll see Craven is gone. Then you'll hear a voice that says, "Round 2 begins now." Peter and MJ will keep wandering through the jungle until they end up finding a small camp of Australian hunters. Peter and MJ will run over there, explain to them that Craven the Hunter has kidnapped them. They think that they're just making up the story, because how is a complete amazing superhero like Spider-Man able to be kidnapped by Craven? They think he's making it up until he shoots a web out covering the guy's mouth. Then they all realize, oh, okay, he's telling the truth. So they agree to help him, but then out of nowhere a spear will come, piercing one of them, killing them instantly. Peter and MJ will then kind of look around knowing that it's Craven. A bunch of spears will come out, killing each hunter. Peter will then get ready to fight Craven. He'll then close his eyes, and kind of similar to that scene in Spider-Man Far From Home when he's like, "Come on, Peter Tingle," and he closes his eyes and he's able to locate each drone. Similar to that, he's able to locate each and one of Craven's attacks because of his spider sense. He'll be able to beat Craven. He'll then grab Craven, slam him against a tree. Craven will sit there surprised and say, "This cannot be. How have you beat me in my home? How have you beat me in my territory?" Peter will then raise his fist ready to punch Craven until he notices something off about the tree. He'll then grab Craven and throw him and put his hand on the tree and realize the tree is fake. It's made out of metal. He'll then look around and say, "It's all fake. Everything in here is fake." Craven will then start laughing and go, "Well done, Spider-Man. You have figured it out." And then this is where things get interesting. Green Goblin will then appear, and he will say, "You have figured it out, Spider-Man. Well done." Peter will then walk closer to the Goblin, and he'll ask him, "What are you doing, Goblin? Why do you want me here?" And Goblin will then go on to say, "I want to study you, see what makes you Spider-Man." And Peter looks around and goes, "And what if I don't want to be studied?" Goblin will then laugh and say, "Then she dies." Peter will turn around and see Craven holding MJ. Peter will then stop and say, "Just let her go. Take me, just please let her go. She has nothing to do with what we have." And then the Goblin will laugh and say, "Well, Mr. Parker, shall we start the test?" Peter will then look up. He'll take his mask off and look at the Goblin and say, "How do you know who I am?" And then Goblin will then laugh and say, "I've always known who you are, Peter. Since day one, since we first met, I've always known who you are." And then Peter will then get angry and say, "Why have you taken Mary Jane?" And then he'll say, "Well, our little spy has told us all about MJ." So then, Green Goblin will then turn around and say, "Would you please join us, sir?" Harry Osborn will then come running or walking into the room. Peter will then get angry and he'll look at Harry and go, "Why? I thought we were friends." Harry will then look up and he'll say, "I'm sorry, Peter, I never wanted this. But if I didn't do what he said, he would have killed my father. He kidnapped him. He would have killed him." And then the Green Goblin will then laugh and say, "Well, let's start the test." And then all of a sudden, they go into this room, and Peter sits down in a hospital bed that's just sitting there. He'll look up and see a thing of chemicals. He'll squint his eyes and realizes those chemicals, if he mixes those together, they can create smoke. So he then looks at Green Goblin as he comes walking in with a needle, and he'll say, "Let the test begin." Peter will then turn around and shoot a web out that and pull the chemicals down. They'll create smoke, so Peter uses that as his chance to fight Goblin. He'll then jump on top of the Goblin, punching him. The Goblin will then grab him and flip him off of him, but Peter will grab his mask and rip it off. And then that's when Peter sees who the Goblin truly is. It is Norman Osborn. Peter will then get angry and say, "So is Harry lying? Does he know that you're secretly the Goblin?" And then the Goblin will laugh and say, no, you see, you got it all wrong. Norman Osborn created me." And then he'll go on to say that about Norman Osborn trying to recreate the super soldier serum but failed, and ultimately creating the Green Goblin, his greatest creation yet. And then he will go on to say, once the Goblin was formed, there was only one they knew that can destroy them, but what if he joined them? So he went on about his plan to corrupt Spider-Man, turn him into another being like the Goblin. Norman at first was hesitant, but then agreed. But then they decided to use Harry as the spy, and once they found out about Mary Jane, they decided Mary Jane would be the one they would use to convince Peter to join them by threatening to kill her or hurt her. Peter will then get angry and jump and try to punch the Goblin. The Goblin will then grab Peter by the neck, throw him, he'll crash through a wall, and he'll end up in a room with more chemicals. Peter will then look at the chemicals, realizing that he could possibly, do something to distract him so he could attack him. The Goblin will jump through, Peter will shoot a web out, pulling all the chemicals down, and the chemicals create an explosion. The Goblin will fly back and hit the wall, hit his head so hard on the wall that he'll fall down passed out. Peter will then walk up to him and grab him ready to punch him. The Goblin will then wake up, squint his eyes, and go, "Who are you?" And then that's when Peter realizes he hit his head so hard he lost his memory. He has no memory of who he is. He has no memory of creating the Goblin. He has no memory of... Alright, sorry about that. My controller died. Anyway, he would have no memory of being the Green Goblin. He'll have no memory of Peter and Spider-Man being the same person. He'll have no memory of ever pulling this off. Peter will then sit there and say, "Don't worry, Mr. Osborn. I am Spider-Man. I saved you from the villain known as the Green Goblin. You are safe now. We may leave." He'll then help Norman up and walk back to where Harry and MJ are. Craven will then get angry and say, "I should have known the Goblin didn't have the ability to kill you." He'll then charge at Peter, and Peter, just having enough of all the craziness from that day, will then punch Craven so hard in the face that he passes out. Then he'll turn around and web up Craven. He'll then help Norman walk. Harry will come and give Norman a hug and then thank Peter for saving him and apologize for everything. He never wanted any of this to happen. Peter, upset but at the same time understanding, will put his hand on Harry's shoulder and say, "I don't blame you. You just wanted to save your father. Everything is good." I almost said Gwen, I'm sorry. MJ will then run and hug Peter, happy that he's alive. Then he'll turn around, grab Norman, and swing him to the hospital. Then he would go back to the apartment with Mary Jane, and they'll sit down to relax. Mary Jane will then turn around and ask Peter, "So tell me, Peter, how was it that you were able to beat the Green Goblin?" Peter will then turn around and say, "Norman Osborn is the Goblin." MJ will then get up, kind of scared, and say, "Does Harry know?" And Peter will say, "No, Harry doesn't know. And I think it's best we keep it that way." Then the next day, Harry and Peter and Mary Jane will all head to Oscorp to visit Norman. Norman will look at Peter and MJ and be like, "Oh, it's so good to see you two." Peter and MJ will then turn and look at each other. And then Peter will think to himself, his memory is lost, but how long is it gone? Will it come back? Will he remember who he is? Will he remember who I am? Only time will tell. The end. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed that story. I personally think it could make a great Spider-Man movie, maybe even a great Spider-Man comic. But I do think it is a very interesting story, to say the least. I hope you all enjoyed this video, and I'll see you all in the next one. Goodbye, everybody.